Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Chance to Start Over Again by Kalokagathia. Luffy's dream came true, but what's the meaning of accomplishing his dream without his Nakama around? So he's going to go back and start over. Time travel, what else? I don't own anything. Member list. Taz Peterson, Yonko. Leilani Morris, Warlord. Garrick Russell, Warlord. Black Money _ Young Lion, Warlord. KSG PL4 YZ, Warlord. Adios.
What if you could go back to the past? An unknown person says that made Luffy go out of his thoughts. He looked up and saw a man. He was a tall man. He had a curved black mustache and a grin with intense eyes. He also had a thick black hair. He had a red coat, most likely for captains. But what Luffy made his whole attention to him was his question. "What do you mean? Who are you, Asen?" Luffy asks as the old man laughed. "If you could go back to the past, would you accept it?" the old man asks as Luffy widens his eyes in surprise. After all those painful years, hearing those words made Luffy have a slight hope of having his Nakama back, and all those people he loved and died. "Wouldn't that be obvious? I'd accept it if it means taking my Nakama and the others back." Luffy answers immediately as he looks at the man with slight hope. The said man grins at Luffy. "I can do it," the man says to Luffy, who was wide-eyed. With that single sentence, he felt hope. "Why you can do it?" Luffy asks as he stutters, too stunned. He looks at the man who grinned and nodded. His teardrops fell. He was about to see his Nakama and his family again. But in exchange, the old man starts and looks seriously at Luffy, who was happy to do anything just to see his Nakama again. "For what?" Luffy says as he was really feeling pumped up. He knew the guy wasn't lying. He knows, he just knows. "Save my son, Ace," the old man says as Luffy nods at the man. He blinked twice before learning who he was talking to. "Gold Roger," Luffy shouts as his eyes were wide yet again. But then he can't be that surprised anymore. This was Raftel. Roger laughed and nodded. "I'll do it, he was my sworn brother. I'd do it even if you didn't tell me to," Luffy says as the two stared at each other until Gol raised his hands towards the sea. He waited. Suddenly a huge whirlpool appeared. "Tell me which time you want to be at," Roger asks at Luffy. Looked at Gol. He took a glance at the whirlpool before grinning. "The time where Shanks came to our village," Luffy says with a gleeful tone. Gol nods as he went out of the way to let Luffy go to the whirlpool in front of him. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Jinbei. "Ace. Everyone. I'm coming. I'll promise you all that I'll save you all again." Luffy runs to the whirlpool and stopped at the final step and turned to Roger. She. "Thank you, Roger." Roger grinned and Luffy jumped at the whirlpool. The moment he jumped into the water, he couldn't breathe. Then he lost all consciousness. He couldn't breathe, then somehow he was completely normal now. He opened his eyes and then every scene changed. First, he was at Raftel, then now here he is, 6 years old, currently with Shanks. The bandit didn't come yet, and somehow he had a tingling sensation at the side of his eye. "You can't handle being a pirate," Shanks shouted as Luffy got confused. Then he thought about it for a minute. Oh, it was the time where he stabbed himself in the eye. Not being able to swim is a pirate's greatest weakness. Luffy decided to go along with it since he was more matured and smarter than he was when he was a kid. "Besides, my fighting is pretty good too," Luffy says as needed to remember every bit of words. "As long as I stay on the ship, I'll be fine. What did I said before after this? I've rigorously trained before," Luffy shouts as he raises his hands, punching in the air as he remembered on his timeline. "My punch is as strong as pistol fire." Shanks laid down on the counter with his palms supporting his head's weight with a bored expression. "Pistol? Wow, really?" Shanks says a disbelieving tone while Luffy knew this was past. He can't help but get angry at that. "What kind of tone is that?" Luffy yells in anger yet kept his composure calm. He can't afford to let things mess up. Then the pirates suddenly joined the conversation. "Luffy, you seem unhappy. Be happy to face anything." "Yeah, a pirate's life is great. The sea is so wide and deep. You can go to any island and seek adventure. Nothing is greater than freedom." Luffy remembered the words like it was yesterday. He can't help but imagine it all and laugh. "Don't give him dumb ideas, guys," Shanks says as the others boo Shanks. "But it's the truth, isn't right?" Lucky Roo asked while a pirate answered, "Right? Captain, why don't you take him with us one time? It's not a big deal," someone asks Shanks, who looked at him with an unimpressed look. "Yeah, I agree." Someone agrees on the background, though Luffy keeps quiet, knowing how dangerous it would now. Unlike before when he was just so naive. "Well then, next time one of you get off the ship and let him take your place." Shanks says as the others turned their backs on Luffy. "We've said enough. Let's drink," the others says as Luffy mutters, "Traitors," but can't help but smile at them. "The most important thing is that you're still too young. Wait at least another 10 years and I'll reconsider taking you out to sea." Shanks says as Luffy mutters again but didn't let anyone hear it. If they heard what he said, that'd be when I'll sail out to sea. People will get suspicious of him. Luffy remembers what he took from Shanks, his arm. He won't make that mistake ever, again. Luffy somehow made a sad face for a moment but Shanks caught a glimpse of it. "Don't be sad. Here, drink some juice." Shanks thought Luffy would fall for it. Well, that isn't gonna happen, anymore. Luffy smirked. "A man doesn't drink juice, Shanks," Luffy says with a smug tone. The bar went silent for a moment, then Lucky Roo suddenly shouted stood up. "Everyone, Luffy just got smarter." Lucky Roo yells as all of them cheered in happiness. Luffy was quite offended but brushed it off. "Luffy, would you like to eat something?" Makino, the bar owner, asks Luffy, who from the moment he heard food, which is a magical word for him, he thought of meat, and secretly, the rums. "Okay, I'll pay you with my treasure tab," Luffy says while grinning as he puts his weight on his right arm, and putting his right arm on the table. "What treasure? You're lying again," Shanks says as Luffy makes a sharp turn to Shanks. He felt incredibly offended by that. "I'll pay her once I become the Pirate King, and return here," Luffy says angrily as he huffs. Makino giggles. "I'll be waiting," she says while smiling at Luffy. "Excuse me." A familiar voice was heard when the door banged. Luffy unconsciously growled and a little haki came out and he curses himself for it. Shanks and the others felt it, but shrugged it off, thinking it was one of their nakama. "Hee, so this is what pirates look like, huh? This is the first time I've seen pirates. They look pretty dumb to me." The person, or Higuma, says, and as much as Luffy wanted to punch his face now, he'd be patient. But patience was never one of his favorites, yet Luffy continued to eat. Higuma is a tall, dark-skinned man with black hair, a black goatee, and an X-shaped scar above his right eye. He wore a long red coat over a white shirt, black trousers, and a golden necklace. Higuma goes in front of the counter, facing Makino, who looked troubled. "We are bandits, we're not here to cause any trouble. We just want to buy 10 barrels of sake." Makino's sweat was visibly being seen. "I'm so sorry, but we are out of sake," Makino says as she stiffens. Higuma looks at the pirates, or rather, what the pirates were holding right now. "Oh, that's strange. Then what are they drinking? Is it water?" Higuma asks as Makino makes a nervous smile. "It's sake, but that's all we have," Makino says as Shanks smiles at the bandit good-heartedly. "I'm sorry, looks like we've finished all the sake here, sorry about that," Shanks says as he held out a sake. "Here, if you don't mind. Take the last bottle." Higuma looked for a minute then shattered the bottle in Shanks' face, causing everyone to react. Luffy eyed him. He was about to make sure Higuma gets it later, hard. "Just who do you think I am? Don't take me so lightly. One bottle is not enough," Higuma yells at Shanks, whose eyes is covered by his hat. "Oh no, the floor is all wet," Shanks says as he looks at the floor, which was wet. Higuma took out a wanted poster that was hidden in his red coat. "See this? My head is worth 8 million belly. I'm one of the prime fugitives here. And I've killed 56 people before, you cocky bastard," Higumo says with a dark expression. Luffy just closed his eyes. If he was about to see the guy, he'd pummel him to death. Though he sees the chest that held his devil fruit. "Gomu gomu no mi," Luffy says in his thoughts while he took and ate the devil fruit, silently coughing of the taste. "Now that you know who I am, don't mess with us again. After all, mountain bandits and pirates don't mingle very well," Higuma says smugly while Shanks ignored this and took a large chunk of shard at the broken bottle while picking the rest. "Sorry about that, Makino. Do you have a mop?" Shanks asks as Makino flinches. "Ah, it's alright. I'll clean it up," Makino says as she goes to the other room to get a mop. Higuma took his saber in his hands and shattered the rest. Shanks fell down, completely wet. Luffy was sure veins visibly came out in his face. He didn't even try dodging this time as he felt the wetness on his side. "Well, it seems like you really enjoy cleaning. Now you can do more," Higuma says in hidden anger. After that, the bandits walked towards the door and said something that made Luffy used all of his will to stop him from torturing the guy to death. "Later, you bunch of chickens." After that the bandits left. Makino kneeled down to Shanks. "Are you alright, Captain? Did you get hurt?" Makino asks as Luffy watches the whole thing with bored eyes. "No, I'm fine," Shanks answers as he raises his hands, indicating to stop. "Ahahaha. Our captain looked silly." The others laugh at Shanks' current state, ignoring the fact someone just humiliated him. "He fixed you up good, Captain," one shouts in laughter. Luffy and Shanks just laughed too. "Enjoyed the bath?" Luffy says as he teases Shanks, who laughed off the joke. Suddenly a yell resonated in the bar that made them quiet. "Ah, Captain, the devil fruit. It's gone." Lucky Roo yells as his captain panics. Luffy decided to tell them, it was going to show up later on. "Oh, That fruit? It was disgusting. All of them looks at Luffy like he had two heads. Lucky drew a fruit which resembled his Gomu Gomu no Mi. Luffy, did you eat this? Lucky asked while Half Lee shouted at Luffy. Yeah. Luffy calmly replies while Shanks places H holder while sweats were dropping visibly. That's the fruit of rubber. It's one of the fruits of the devil and on the rarest treasures at sea. Whoever eats it will turn into a rubber man and will never be able to swim. Shanks yells while Luffy had a blank look. Cool, Luffy says calmly, leaving all the others shocked by the response. The next day, where everyone knew of his devil fruit powers, he went out as usual with the mayor's scolding. He plugged his ears, not wanting to hear any of it. It's been a long time since Luffy had seen the pirates. Now he's at Party's bar with Makino, cleaning the glasses and things. The pirates have been out at sea for a long time. Do you miss them, Luffy? Makino asks as Luffy grins. Nah. Luffy says while Makino was quite surprised by the response. Suddenly a familiar so the person Luffy wanted to kill guy went in. Excuse me. Higuma says while he was with his friends, well, looks like the pirates aren't here today. It sure is quiet. We're back again. As the others sat on the chairs, Higuma yelled at Makino. What are you waiting for? We're customers. Bring us some sake. Luffy, again, grew a throbbing vein in his head. Just a little more, just enough proof that I'll be able to kick him out of the world. Slowly, patience. Luffy thought of it like a mantra. Chief, hurry. Something bad has happened. Makino yells as she came rushing at the mayor's house. The mayor, Whoop Slap, turns to Makino. What's wrong, Makino? What's all this fuss about? Whoop Slap asks as Makino pants heavily. Luffy was kidnapped by the bandits. Makino yells with a horrified face. The people were forming at the place where Luffy tortured Higuma, like he said. Hard? Mayor and Makino came with troubled and worried faces. What happened? Whoop Slap asks, not knowing things yet. Then Makino and Mayor gasped. Higuma was tied up and beaten up. His arms and legs were bent. The fingers were being snapped at Luffy, who was happily and sadistically sitting at Higuma's body. What? Looks like you got your proof at your fist being strong as a pistol. Shanks says while Luffy smirks in satisfaction as he held two fingers. One street they harassed Makino. Luffy says as he leaves the last finger. Second. They mocked you guys. And the pirates laughed, leaving the confused villagers. You're really leaving this time? Luffy asks Shanks. But he knew better, he knew the truth. Yep, we've stayed here long enough. It's about time we moved on. Are you upset? Shanks says as he attempts to at least tease Luffy. No, not at all. Luffy says with a gleeful tone and a grin. Shanks comically fell to the ground, making the others laugh. One day I'll find myself a crew that is as strong as yours. And then I'll find the world's biggest treasure. Even though I'll already found it, Luffy thought. And become the king of pirates. I already am. Luffy snickered at the thought. Oh, so you want to be bigger than us, huh? Well then. Shanks says as he reaches for his hat. Luffy already knew what was going to happen. Shanks was going to pass his hat, but this hat is my gift to you. Luffy just can't help but cry. This is my favorite hat, you know. When you become a great man in the future, you'll return that hat to me. Shanks says as he was about to go, but Luffy ran to him with a grin. Shanks, before I forget, Luffy says as he takes out an envelope and gave it to the confused Shanks. Luffy grins. Read it out loud with your trusted people. Keep it a secret. She. Shanks was confused but still nodded. Pull up the anchor. Set sail. Shanks orders as Ben was waiting for him. The kid's gonna be big someday. Ben says calmly to Shanks while smiling. I know, he reminds me of my early years, Shanks says, returning the smile and passing Ben. As they were out of the sight, Shanks took out the envelope that Luffy gave, which confused the others. Ben, Lucky, and everyone. Luffy gave me an envelope and said to read it out loud with my trusted people. All of that caught everyone's attention and formed a circle. Shanks took out the note and read it out loud. Dear Shanks, when you read this you're probably out in the sea now. My secret is that I'm from the future. From my first timeline you lost your arm, so I thought it'd be fair to share you some of my info. She. Anyways, I'm sorry but I secretly came to your ship and wrote down your Den Mushi number. I need it. I'd also need your help from the future. It's to prevent something bad happening. Anyways, tell me Giant Asen's Whitebeard if you don't know Den Mushi number. You can tell him I'm from the future and also let him read this note. And I wrote down his own note down. Anyways. To make sure. Just believe in me. I lost many important things on my first timeline, but now I'm here to change it all. Also, you need to practice your hockey and stuff like that for the future. You've gone too rusty, old man. Luffy. P.S. Don't read the ones for Giant Asen's. Shanks finished as everyone was deadly quiet and frozen at their spot, until chaos came. Luffy, what the hell is this? He's from the future, how are we supposed to believe that? And he called Whitebeard, John Dawson, quiet. Shanks shouts as everyone looks at him. For now we have to believe Luffy, and hopefully get some answers if he calls. Everyone agrees, it was a long day for the red-haired pirates. Dadan's country. Luffy thought as he walked towards his grandpa, who was knocking at the door, then suddenly Dadan came with her angry and annoyed tone. Stop it, whoever you are, do you want to get killed? She shouts angrily as Luffy snickers, remembering her face and tone when she sees Garp. It's me. Garp says casually as Dadan took many steps backward in surprise. Dadan is a rather tall and overweight woman with long, orange, curly hair and a big, masculine face. In her appearance in Luffy's flashback, she was seen smoking a cigarette. She wears a white collar shirt, a pink beaded necklace, checkered trousers held up with a large belt, and heeled boots. G Garp-san. Dadan shouts while two people, which was Dogra and Mogra, came surprised at seeing Garp. Dogra's most distinctive trait is his short height. He always has a rather annoyed look on his face. He wears a polka-dotted dungarees and, much like many other mountain bandits, he has a turban on his head. He carries a sword fitting his size on his back. He seems to be always carrying a dictionary around. While Mogra's overall appearance resembles that of a chicken, he has what appears to be a wattle on his chin, and a comb on his bald head. He has a mustache and sideburns, and big eyelashes, similar to Frankie's. He's always seen with a rather worried look on his face. He wears a decorated jacket paired with a scarf around his neck, and a pair of shorts held up by a standard sash. He also sports what appear to be long, striped socks. He carries a saber on his right hip. You're looking good. Garp says good-heartedly to the three. Dadan bows to the ground in front of Garp. Give me a break, please. You gotta have mercy on me. Ace is 10 years old now. Dadan pleads while Garp only remained his grinning face. Oh yeah, already? How is he? Bawahaha, Garp says as he ignored the pleads of Dadan. Dogra furrows his eyebrow. It's not funny. We can't handle him anymore. You have to take him, Dogra shouts while Luffy snickered as Garp answered. Putting that aside, Garp says, still ignoring the pleads of Dadan and Dogra. Don't put it aside, Dogra shouted in a horrified tone. Who's the kid? Dadan asks, who acknowledged his presence says, as Luffy stays still. Then suddenly, Garp raised him up by back collars. Look after him, too. Garp says as the three was dumbfounded as they looked at Luffy. Hey Luffy, say, hi, to them. Luffy raises his hand. Yo. Luffy says casually. After a few moments of silence, Mogra decided to talk considering they don't know anything about Luffy. Who is that kid? Mogra asks as Garp lets go of Luffy and let him roam around freely. He is my grandson. Garp says nonchalantly. It took a moment of two for the three too. WHHAAAATTTTT. One more? Dogra yells after the scream which also resonated to the whole forest. He's Garp's. I mean Garp-san's grandson. Dadan shouts after Dogra in a horrified tone. OPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPO after the shoutings, etc. Three sat firmly in the ground. We can't, the three shouted at the same time while they crossed their arms into an X. Garp towered over them, his arms crossed.
Alright then, here's your choice. Do you want to spend all your life in prison or raise him? There are many crimes that you committed that I've overlooked. Garp says as the three shivers in fear. Luffy looked at the scenery, he can't help but feel nostalgic. Suddenly a spit came out of nowhere and targeted him. Knowing Luffy, he unconsciously used observation haki and looked at the guy who spat at him. It was Ace.
I'm sorry for not being so strong, but this time you'll live. Luffy says in his thoughts while he used the rim of his hat to cover his eyes which had tears that were threatening to fall. After a time Luffy looked at Ace. Why'd you spit on me? That was gross, you know. Garp saw this and grins at them. Ace. Garp walks towards them while Mogra looks at Ace in the background. You're back, Ace, Mogra says while Ace was sitting on a boulder with his pipe, crossed legs and arms. Luffy can't help but feel sad and worry with his eyes filled with hatred. He can't help but feel guilty for not being with him. Luffy, this is Ace. He's 3 years older than you. You're gonna live with them from today. Garp says as he pushes Luffy. Luffy grins at Ace, who is glaring at him, no doubt. Nice to meet you, Ace. Luffy says, and as he said that, the three once again was surprised. What? You can't just do that. The three complained in the background while Ace stayed silent as Luffy's grin faltered and smiled. Garp couldn't handle the tension that even Luffy can feel. Be nice. Garp says while the three was shocked at the revelation. Is it decided? The three shouted and stunned. Garp gave them a death glare. Any problem with that? Garp asks as the three went pale and frozen in their place, then they somehow stood straight. We'll take him, the three chorused with fake happiness. That's all from me. I'll stop by when I have the time. Garp says as Mogra decided to step up. What about child support? Mogra asks as Garp doesn't turn to them. Put it on my bill. Garp says as Ace and Luffy stared at each other, not even blinking. This is not a bar. Dogra whispers on Garp's back, but Garp heard it and looked at Dogra. Huh? Garp says with the same death glare. You're always welcome, Dadan says to Garp with her visibly sweating. Boss, we can't take care of one more kid. Magra says as Ace left at the boulder with his pipe still at his hands as he walked towards the hut. Shut up. Let's just eat first. Fix it, Dadan yelled at Dogra and Magra. Okay. The two passed at each other with Luffy's smile wasn't at his face as his eyes were covered once again by his hat. I'll save you. This time not failing. We'll be brothers again. And about Sabo? I don't know yet. Luffy grinned and wiped his tears and walked towards the same destination. Opo. After those moments Luffy was left at the mountain bandits. They were all in the living room, circling around Luffy. I hate mountain bandits. Luffy says as he smiles at Dadan with nostalgic eyes, but I like you guys. Dadan's face gets red in anger. Shut it you damn brat. Looking after you is a pain in the ass for us too. If you don't want to be here. That's fine by me. Get out here and starve to death. Dadan yells at Luffy as Magra came on the scene with his calm face. Calm down, boss. Magra says as he was trying to calm down Dadan. Opo. Luffy followed Ace who looked at him, annoyed. Luffy just grinned. Hey, I'm Luffy. I'm not angry about you spitting on me anymore. Luffy says gleefully while Ace just stayed quiet. It's not a big deal, so let's be friends. Where are you going? Luffy adds but Ace just broke a tree towards him, but unknown to Ace, Luffy just dodged it when he wasn't there. Luffy followed Ace at the bride, still grinning. Ace tightened his hold on his pipe and destroyed the bridge when he got out, leaving Luffy to fall. Ace just turned away. Luffy somehow figured that a long time ago he has his abilities and skills and stuff from his timeline, so he used Geppo to land peacefully as his eyes had pity. You must have been alone these past years. Don't worry, I'm coming. Opo. Ace, did you come back alone? Magra asks Ace, who stayed silent as Magra asked Ace again. Where is he? Wasn't Luffy with you? After that Ace just shrugged with food in his hand.
Dunno. Ace says casually as he stays quiet and kept eating on the corner. Suddenly, someone knocks at the door. Magra stands up and opens the door, only to be surprised.
Boss, it's Luffy. Magra shouts while the others run towards the door, only to see a fresh, not eaten, not bitten, not injured, Luffy.
What? The others shouted as they looked at Luffy as Ace only took a peek. He wasn't in the least injured, he also had few foods in behind him.
He was, still alive. Dadan shouts as was a bit stunned. It was in the middle of the night. It was the most dangerous to him down, boss. Magra says, as always. It seems like Magra's the only one who does this. Where the hell did you go? Dadan shouts in anger while Luffy just looked at them with a grin. Adventure. It was quite hard to catch the angry and lonely fish. Luffy slowly says as he looks at Ace, who was confused at the sentence as the others were confused mixed with anger. Opo. Where are you going today, Ace? Luffy asks with excitement in his tone. Ace looks at his shoulder revealing a grinning and happy Luffy. Take me too. Let's be friends. Ace once again just stayed silent as he tried killing Luffy. Ace always attempted killing Luffy, and it was like the heavens doesn't want Luffy to die. It felt like the gods deemed that he can't kill Luffy. And for some reason, Luffy always go back with foods and unharmed. But even at nights Ace can't help but wonder what he always does at nights where he leaves at midnight and always comes back whenever one of the bandits wake up. Ace knew from the start when they slept and Ace had his guard up, Luffy never sleeps. Heck, he never caught a glimpse of Luffy sleeping even for once. Ace can somehow feel Luffy protecting the hut and the people around it including Ace whenever he had time. And the weirdest thing was that Luffy's eyes looked so old even though he's young. Luffy always looks after the hut. When he has the time he looks after the Fuchsia village. Why? Because a long time ago when he was the Pirate King, arrogant marines came and destroyed the whole island, leaving the nobles to escape and took the places where Luffy cherished and protected the most. After that Luffy heard the news and came. Luffy saw Makino dead in the party's bar, on the ground. Each of them dead, and when he came to the hut all of them were dead. The marines said that pirates came and lost everything he had. This time I won't lose everyone. I won't let anyone kill the people I love. I won't let them do it. I came here to protect them, and I won't let them do whatever they please. This time I'm going to protect them and won't let them die. Luffy's memories of everyone dying flashes at his eyes. A single tear came out which didn't come unnoticed to Ace who was looking at him. Ace and Sabo ran as fast as they could, sweats forming on their face as they tightened their grip on their pipe. It's been evening and they had to save Luffy. Flashback. I wonder how much it takes to buy a pirate ship. Sabo asks Ace who looked at their pirate fund and looks at Sabo back. Dunno, 10 million or 100 million belly? We've still got a long way to go. Ace responds as pauses for a second. Shut it quick. Or someone might see it. Suddenly Luffy came behind the tree. A pirate ship? Are you guys gonna be pirates? So am I, Luffy says, as always, gleefully. Sabo and Ace look at Luffy with a stunned and horrified face. The two jumped and quickly roped Luffy at the tree. Ace, you come out here every day? Luffy asks at Ace, grinning. Shut it, Ace coldly says as he crosses his arms. Is this that Luffy guy you told me? Sabo asks Ace as Luffy turns to Sabo with his eyebrow raised. What did he told you about me? Luffy asks as Sabo looks at Luffy. He said you were weird, and you don't sleep. Sabo responds while Ace glares at Sabo who looked confused giving him, what did I do? Look. Luffy made a blank face yet his eyes wide, which took the attention of the two but Luffy quickly grinned and looked at them. Let's kill him, Ace says casually while Sabo looks at him. Yeah, let's do it, Sabo says as he nods. Luffy only sighed at their naiveness. Do you know what happens when you kill? Luffy says while the two looked at Luffy. Before Luffy could have talked, Ace glares at Luffy. Shut up. What do you know about us anyway? We're not the same at you, Ace yells in anger while Sabo tried calming him down. We might be different in many ways, but we have some similarities, Luffy says painfully while the two was confused but then they heard in the bush a voice. I heard voices from the forest. Sounds like kids, an unknown person shouts and Sabo and Ace tensed. Crap, someone's coming, Sabo whispers as Ace looked behind him with a panicked face. Quick, undo the rope. If we don't get out of here, they're gonna find out treasure, Ace whispers and they immediately hid behind the bush. It showed a big man and two men on his side. Those kids are pretty famous around here. It was definitely Ace that stole your money, the big man says while the man that Ace robbed was behind him. Ace stiffened. Yes, it was pathetic, but I was careless, the guy Ace robbed says sheepishly. I'm amazed this kid was brave enough to go after our pirate crew's money. If Captain Blue Jam hears about this, we're both dead, the big guy says while Sabo and Ace were visibly sweating. Crap, that guy was with Blue Jam. This is bad, we stole from him, Ace whispered to Sabo while still looking at the three bandits. He's got a real sword. That's one of the subordinates, Porshemi. He's crazy, you know, he scalps his opponents while they're still alive, Sabo says as Ace looks at Sabo like he had two heads. Then Ace remembers something. Ah, Ace widens his eyes and looks at the side, only to see Luffy gone. Huh? Where is he? Sabo asks while panicking. Suddenly they heard Luffy with Porshemi. Let me go, bastard, Luffy shouts with no tone and a bored face. And let's say, think about what happened next while they were searching for Luffy. Present Luffy wasn't having any problems, he still had his Busashoku haki on his side, so he wasn't bleeding or even injured. How the hell are you not injured? Porshemi yells in anger while Luffy huffs. I won't say it, if you're bad then why would I even say it, jerks? Luffy says angrily while Porshemi grew a throbbing vein in his head. Fine, then it's time to die, Porshemi says as he draws his sword and attempts to slash Luffy's neck. A little bit more and it could have killed him. Keyword. Could have on the side of Luffy. The wall broke revealing Ace and Sabo with their pipes. Stop it, Sabo and Ace yells while Luffy grins at them. It's about time you showed up, Luffy yells in anger and huffs. Well, at least they showed up. Sabo and Ace took their time in beating them then Sabo finally takes off Luffy's rope and then realized something. Why aren't you injured? Sabo asks in pure curiosity and surprise while Luffy shows his blank face. Dunno, strong skin. Luffy responds blankly as Sabo takes Luffy and was about to run away. But then Ace was still on his stance, ready to fight them. Let's get out of here, Ace, Sabo yells yet Ace stays at his position, waiting for the bandits to get up and fight him. I'm not going to run away, Ace yells back and Sabo looked at Ace as if he was crazy. Are you an idiot? Sabo yells, once again as Ace had a determined face as he looked at the enemies in front of him. If I face a guy, I won't run away, Ace yells while Sabo was about to protest, but then Luffy laughed. He's a good idiot, Luffy says as he stands up and takes a pipe near him and went in Ace's side, also going to a stance. Wah! Ace says in surprise while Luffy just laughs at Ace's face. I'm just giving you guys a help, Luffy says while grinning. Ace looks at him for a moment then smirked. Fine, but don't blame us if you get killed, Ace says while turning to the enemies. Luffy laughed as he took his stance. Sabo looked at them wide-eyed, full in disbelief. TCH, Sabo curses as he went with them. Porshemi stood up with his eyes covered in anger. Hey, that's a bad decision, you know? Just give us our money back, you rotten kid, Porshemi says while Ace grips his pipe tighter. We'll use it better. Ace shoots back while Porshemi grows a throbbing vein as he takes his sword. Don't be ridiculous, Porshemi yells in anger while Ace was the first to go run towards him. If I lost to a kid, I quit being a pirate. Ace wasn't strong enough to deflect the power Porshemi gave so he went crashing down at his back before everyone could see it. Luffy punches Porshemi's hand which was holding the sword. Porshemi cried out in pain and his grip loosed. Luffy the chance to punch Porshemi right in the face. Gomu Gomu no pistol. Luffy shouts while as he stretches his arm that even normal people can't do. In one punch, Luffy took down Porshemi, without using haki, unknown to everyone. Everyone was wide-eyed. Suddenly, Luffy takes Sabo and Ace with him. Let's go! Luffy shouts gleefully despite just being released from the torture Porshemi did to him. He laughs and drags them with him. That's a bad habit, Ace. You've got to run when you're facing a real pirate. Why do you have a death wish? Sabo shouts at Ace. Luffy was at the tree sitting calmly as he was amused by how Sabo was still sane after the years with Ace. After Sabo's lecture, Ace stands up and points at Luffy. Why didn't you told them where the treasure was? Ace yells as Luffy smiles at Ace. Because. Luffy slowly says while Ace inhales again. Luffy stops, knowing Ace would yell again. Those guys don't care about killing women and children's. Ace yells again. Luffy closes his eye and grins at him. Because, if I told them, I wouldn't be your friend anymore. Luffy says calmly while Ace looked at him as if he was crazy. Even if I don't, it's better than dying, isn't? Why do you want to be my friend so badly? Ace yells while Luffy keeps his grin. After what I did to you, why are you still following me around? Luffy's grin faltered and turned into a sad smile. Because I have no one else. I can't go back to the Fuchsia village. I hate bandits. If I didn't followed you, I would be alone. Feeling alone is worse than being hurt. Luffy says painfully while Ace and Sabo were shocked. Ace calms down and stops pointing at him. Your parents? Ace asks while Luffy looks at him in the eye. Only Gramps, they're gone. Luffy responds as the two kept the Q&A. If I'm around, would it be better? Yeah. And if I were gone, would it be worse? Yeah. Do you want me to live? Ace asks as he remembers when he asked people about if Gold Roger had a son. Question. Yeah, Gold D Ace. Luffy says as Sabo and Ace looks at Luffy with their eye-rip-on pipes tightened. How? How did? Ace says as he stops when Luffy grins at him with sad eyes. Everyone has monsters on their heart. Parentages don't matter. You're you. Did you thought that they would say something good about Gold Roger if they were enemies? Luffy says as Ace's eyes widened. Luffy jumped out of the tree and walked towards Ace. Ace took a step back. My father is also called the most wanted man in the world. Sabo's eye widened at the revelation. Dragon. The leader of the revolutionary. Sabo yells as he was surprised and stunned. Luffy nodded as Ace's grip loosened a little when he heard it. If I were to ask a marine, what if Dragon had a son? They would say bad things. Luffy continues as he points at Ace's heart. Ask people who knows Gold Roger, and that's when you have to believe what they say. Is he good, or bad? The people who only knew Roger can say the truth. Ace. Everyone has the right to live. Ace was fully shocked that another person could accept him. There's a lot of people who can accept you than us. Think of Nico Robin. She has a bounty and is on the run, starting from when she was 8 years old. Ace his eyes widens more. Someone had a bounty even when they're 8 years old. Ace says in his thoughts as Luffy smiles at him. You don't have one. That's why you have to be strong like her, because she has a dream and still has a will to accomplish it. She tries to live and live. You have to do the same. There's no one who's alone in the world. Luffy says as Ace's wall breaks. Friends? Luffy asks Ace and Sabo as he grins at them. Hear that, Ace? He accepts you. Sabo says as he already accepted Luffy, and there's no way Ace wouldn't. After all, he already broke his walls. Fine. Ace says as he stutters in embarrassment. Luffy laughs, and because of that, Ace gets angry and... At least they were friends. Things went quite well for Luffy, though he had to act like the little brother they had from the first timeline, which of course confused the two. But unlike the first timeline, Luffy sometimes unconsciously use observation haki and throw a punch at either Sabo or Ace. Still, he has no win like the first timeline. Though the two turned into quite a Brokon. Gomu Gomu no, Luffy says weakly as he spins his arm. What do you think? Ace says quietly as Luffy purposely threw his arm wobbly in the ground to punch his own face. You're even doing... Ace finishes as he kicks Luffy right in the face. Not that the punch or Ace's kick hurt, but he made sure to jump backward. Gueeh, Luffy's sound effect, which made it look like it hurts really bad and Luffy bit his mouth to have some bleeding on. They're the only one who has benefits. TCH, I can't wait till I'm 17 years old. Luffy says in his thoughts as he jumps backward from the kick. In match, Ace is the winner. Sabo says as he grins and Ace crosses his arms. Is that ability of yours really good for anything? Ace says in a mocking way while Luffy sits and pouts. Sabo laughs at his brothers. Mostly because of Ace, because he looks like he's been struck by Cupid's arrow right in the heart because of Luffy's pout. Well, not like he was better. And as usual, Luffy's lost to me and to Ace 50 times each. Me and Ace are at 24 to 26. Damn it! Sabo shouts in frustration while Ace was done fawning over Luffy and he takes his pipe. Come on, let's go catch dinner. Ace says while he still has a blush and a nosebleed. Luffy laughs while Ace gets redder. The three goes to the crocodile swamp, thinking of meat and foods, of course. Alright, how does crocodile sound? Sabo grins teasingly at Luffy, who beamed, which made Sabo and Ace blush and become a brocon. Try not to get eaten this time, alright, Luffy? She crocodile sure is tasty, Luffy says. I have a feeling their brother complex will worsen. The trio jumps on the tree and clashes with some crocodiles, but then Luffy stopped midway with a blank face. Wait, I still have time to help Tor out right now, and to stop Kui. Queen? No, Queen is death. I also can stop by for Robin. It'll be okay if I go to Florian Triangle for Brook. I can also stop Chopper's doctor's death. I can stop by in Water 7 for Frankie. I can also stop at Nami's island so I can beat the hell out of Arlong. And for Usopp. Maybe I can visit him and ask him to join my crew and beat Kuro too. For Jinbei. I don't know. For Sanji. Yeah, I can help him. His thoughts stopped when he heard Ace's shout. Luffy. Ace shouts as his aura was saying, kill that crocodile for my cute and sweet little brother. Luffy looked at his side and saw a crocodile about to hit him, but then Ace hit the crocodile and Sabo joined him with torturing the poor crocodile, all because the crocodile tried eating him. After that, they dragged Luffy out of the forest and to the hut. What the hell were you thinking? Ace scolds Luffy, who is still as his thoughts. Ace got annoyed and bonked him in the head. Listen to me. Luffy was still dazed. Inside, Ace was panicking, thinking something happened to Luffy and his brocon mode was slowly being activated. Ah! Luffy suddenly shouts, which made Ace and Sabo jump a little. What is wrong with you today? Sabo shouts to Luffy, who suddenly stands up with a grin on his face. Nothing, Luffy says while he runs towards the food, leaving Ace and Sabo. Oppo. Hey Ace, where's Luffy? Sabo asks with their sweat visibly seen on their face. They came back to the hut with food, of course. Luffy wasn't with them. It made them nervous. I don't know. Ace says in horror, thinking of numerous ways that people won't be able to understand, unless it was Sabo we're talking about. Oppo. I found a message from Luffy. Sabo shouts as Ace sharply turned his head to Sabo, leaving the food alone. Screw the food, Luffy was a million more important. What was he thinking disappearing on US? Ace shouts in anger, his tone filled with worry though. All of the bandits came with Ace and went inside at the trio's room. Sabo reads the note aloud. Dear everyone, sorry for not telling, but I decided to have an adventure alone. I'd come back. Maybe for 3 months. Sorry for not telling, but it's urgent. P.S. Sorry, after that Luffy's name resonated through the island. Oppo. I'm going to Nami's first. Luffy says as he was sailing with the boat he made that was wooden. I'll only be able to go at Frankie. I'll let him be the last. Oppo. Ah, Nami's island. Kokoyashi, here I come. Luffy shouts as he docks the boat near Kokoyashi village. After that he inflated his body to look like he was after the time skip, while he made his old buttoned vest and shorts, so no need to worry about clothes. Suddenly he frowned. He walks towards Nami's home and sees something he doesn't like. Is that Nami's mother? Belmere?
That money is my children's share. I don't have enough to pay for myself. Luffy hears Belmere shouts as he walks towards Belmere.
Belmere! Genzo yells as Luffy feels Nami and Nejico just at the bush, their tears threatening to fall. What? Arlong says while he stops walking as he heard what Belmere just said. I'm sorry Gen, I just can't bring myself to say that I don't have a family. Belmere says as he pauses with a smile on her face. Luffy was now half running. He was getting faster. Belmere was crying. Even if it's just mere words, I still want to be called as their mother. Those girls are my children, aren't they? Arlong looks at his shoulder. Luffy was still halfway there. You have children? Arlong asks slowly as Nejico and Nami run past Genzo, their tears already falling. Belmere! The two shouted as they run towards Belmere with fear and sadness in their eyes. No, girls! Genzo shouts painfully as he tries stopping them. The three hugs at each other. He was almost there. It doesn't even matter what he hears anymore. Almost there. Genzo shoots with his hidden gun. Genzo gets punched. His impromptu plan didn't work. Almost there. Arlong raises his gun. I can reach it. It's time to stop. Stop it, Arlong. Luffy says with a hint of disgust as he holds the gun Arlong was holding, with Conqueror's Haki. Directly to the fishmen alone. Arlong kneels down as the others were unconscious with foam on their mouth. Even without a directed one to the others, Belmere, Genzo, Nami, and Nejico can feel it. They also kneeled down as Belmere fell to the ground. How dare you make me do this? Huma Ak. Before Arlong could continue what he was saying, without mercy, Luffy kicks Arlong at his gut with Busashoku Haki. Not the strongest but close to the weakest he can get. Dealt by the damage Arlong himself. Arlong went unconscious. The others look at him in shock and a slight hint of fear. Belmere was the first to talk. Who are you? Belmere asks, ignoring the pain of where she was shot. Luffy turns to Belmere and grins, not like his blank face when he made Arlong unconscious. I'm Monkey D. Luffy. I came to save you guys, Luffy says gleefully. After a moment of silence, Genzo and the others cried in happiness. Nejiko and Nami ran towards Belmere. Belmere. The three hugged each other and cried. Genzo runs towards the village to the others to tell what happened. It was once in a lifetime, after all. Thank you, Luffy-san. Genzo says before running towards the village. Luffy only grins at Genzo. I came here for one reason. I need a navigator. Luffy says as he takes a glance at Nami before looking at Belmere. Why you need a navigator? Nami asks as Luffy nods. Only at the future, I will come back someday. Luffy says while Nami wiped her tears and stood up, walked towards Luffy. I'll be your navigato and do. Nami says with determination in her face. Luffy grins at Nami's determination. Good, I have to get going too. He says while the others, villagers went to Belmere with pure shock in their face. Already? Belmere asks as a doctor comes close to her and helps her stand up. Luffy nods. I have things to do. Luffy responds as the others only nods. After an hour of eating and stuff. Luffy finally went to the docks as all of the people who lived in the Konami Island bid their goodbyes. Bye. Luffy shouts as he waves at the villagers, and the villagers waved back. When they were out of sight, Luffy quickly thought of the next destination. I'd say Zoro, to Usopp, then to Chopper, then Sanji, then Torao, then Robin. Then Frankie, next Brook, then finally Jinbei. How'd I tell him? Not a need to bother, in any case, it sure is great that I was able to study navigation a little bit. Luffy goes to Zoro. Hope he doesn't fail though. Land ho. Luffy shouts and giggles. It's been only a day considering it was near. He docks near and ran to find Zoro, of course, he still inflates his body so that he doesn't need to worry about the future. Luffy goes everywhere until he sees a green-haired kid. He looked at the fence and saw Zoro, he grinned. Hey! Luffy jumps into the fence as Zoro stops at his training. Who are you? Are you looking for a duel? Zoro immediately asks while Luffy had a blank face and stared at Zoro before grinning. No, I'm Monkey D. Luffy. I was only wondering if you want to be my swordsman. What's your name? Luffy asks while it's Zoro's turn to look at him with a blank face before his eyebrow twitches. I'm Roronoa Zoro. I have a dream to achieve, so I can't join you. Either way, I won't. Zoro says blankly while Luffy looks at him before looking at his right when he saw a guy walking towards them, then finally talks. I'm Koshiro. May I ask what's your name? Koshiro says with a smile and Luffy grins at him. He was kind. Koshiro is a tall man with black hair tied back in a long ponytail. He has a wrinkled face and wears glasses with circular frames. He wears a gray yukata. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the future Pirate King. Luffy grins at Koshiro then turns to Zoro. That's why I want him to be my swordsman. Koshiro chuckles, then Zoro gets a tick mark. I won't join you. Luffy turns to look at Zoro with a kicked puppy face which undoubtedly worked at the two. Then let's duel. If I win you'll be my swordsman at the future, then if I lose, I'll stop bugging you. Luffy says while Zoro turns to Koshiro for permission in a minute, then Koshiro sighed and nodded. Luffy was given a bamboo sword as the two looked at each other. Unbeknownst to them, the trainees were also looking. The two was currently inside and Zoro was currently looking at him straight in the eye. Start, Koshiro shouts as Zoro runs to Luffy, who had a blank face and his sword at his front. Luffy moved that only Koshiro saw, but only Luffy's hair in a second, then now Luffy suddenly has his sword at Zoro's neck. The trainee's jaw dropped. Koshiro was wide-eyed and Zoro was visibly sweating as he feels Luffy's eyes on him. Zoro versus Luffy. Luffy wins. Koshiro could only say that as Luffy loosened his grip and let the bamboo sword fall. How did you do that? Zoro asks in surprise while Luffy grins at him. Learn Busashoku and Kenbunshoku Haki then meet me here, don't go anywhere. If I meant by anywhere, I meant by anywhere. Luffy says seriously. Haki? Koshiro asks while Luffy just grins at him before going to the door, but hands Zoro a sheet of paper, instructions of Haki and the Rokushikas. Don't forget about the bet, bye, first mate. Luffy says while running towards his boat. Just like that and he left the island. Looks like I'm going to be a pirate. I might as well train myself with those Hakis. Zoro says as he smirks. He's free now. Let the boy be. Corazon shouts as Doflamingo shoots at him. Bang! Thud! Corazon didn't feel anything, instead, he heard a thud when he closed his eyes. He opened it to see a kid with a straw hat in front of him and Doflamingo was currently bleeding in the ground. Made it in time. I knew I had to go here first. What was I thinking? I could have gone back to Grand Line if I wanted to, Luffy shouts in frustration to himself while Corazon was surprised. Back to Grand Line. Corazon says in his thoughts, and what even surprised him more was that the boy was able to hurt Doflamingo badly. Doflamingo coughed out blood as he slowly stands up. He was extremely pissed. When he got a clear vision, he saw a straw-hatted kid, and that straw-hatted kid was the one who was able to hurt him. "Who are you, kid?" Doflamingo angrily asks while the said kid crossed his arms and glared at him. Ordinary kid, yep, just ordinary," Luffy says mockingly while Doflamingo grew more throbbing veins in his head. "I'm letting you live for the future, either it's good or bad," Luffy says while he punches Doflamingo. He knew it would come, but the kid was too fast, and the next thing Doflamingo knew that he was unconscious. "Hey, there's someone inside the chest, right?" Corazon flinched but nods. He can't believe what he just saw. A kid maybe at 5 or 6 just knocked down a full grown up, not to mention it was Doflamingo. "I'm Monkey D. Luffy, you can let him out. I'll help you guys escape. The Marines aren't a good choice to approach to. There's someone named Virgo, which is awe. Let's just go and let me explain everything on the boat." Corazon nods and opens the door. His eyes widened. Law was crying. He didn't waste any more seconds as he took Law into his arms and flinched in pain. Luffy noticed this and took Law at his back. "Follow me, the boat isn't that far away," Luffy says while Corazon nods and did what he was told to. When they sneaked, he can't help but look at Luffy. He looked so determined to save them. Okay. I'm not very good at explaining even after all those years," Luffy thought as they successfully went to the boat. But then the tall guy stopped with his jaw on the ground. He got confused when Corazon looked back and forth at his boat. "What is it?" Luffy asks while Corazon rubbed his eyes. "Is it me or is there 2 sea kings who are roped into the boat?" Luffy sighed as he placed down an angry Law, considering he didn't get the chance to walk and let them know that he's alright. "What are you waiting for? Let's go. We're going next to Calm Belt next," Luffy says as he looks at Corazon with a grin. Corazon just nodded as he carefully sits on the boat. "Onwards to Calm Belt," Luffy says as he points out where they would need to go. After moments of silence, Luffy coughed. "You're probably wondering why I saved you guys, right?" Corazon nods. "I'm Corazon, sorry for not telling earlier," Corazon says while Luffy grins at him. Corazon was a tall man. He had golden blonde hair, fair skin, and sharp, reddish-brown eyes. He's wearing a dark red hood from which 2 heart-like shapes hang from, a pair of white jeans, a dark purple feather mantle much like his brother, and a white shirt with pink hearts printed all over it. He also wears mismatched shoes. Rosinante had tattoos, or makeup, over his eyes and mouth. "Nah, it's okay, besides, we never had a time for an introduction," Luffy says as he grins for a couple of seconds. "I know you because of Torao anyways." Luffy uses his serious face. "What's your name?" Luffy turns to Law, who is glaring at him. "I'm Trafalgar Law," Law says before Luffy nods. "Adi?" Luffy asks as Corazon and Law was stunned. After a few moments, Law finally nods. "Trafalgar D. Waterlaw," Law says as Luffy grins at him. "The reason I saved you guys was that I'm only close to the island. I saw you guys, so I didn't waste any more time to save you guys. If you guys were to die in front of me, I wouldn't be able to eat with the guilt eating me," Luffy says as he lies. He was actually worried he wouldn't be able to save Law and Corazon in time, so he changed course. "I see, but can I ask?" Corazon asks Luffy, who tilted his head. "Yeah, what is it?" Luffy says while Law and Corazon looked at each other before nodding, which made Luffy more confused. "Why the hell are there 2 sea kings that are helping you?" Law says with interest all over his face. "Are you alone?" Corazon says, but unlike Law, his face was saying worry. Luffy laughs. She. The 2 sea kings are the one I tamed, and yes, I'm alone. I plan to have a 3 months vacation for a while." Corazon frowns. "It was dangerous, or not?" "Is your island near here?" Corazon asks while Luffy makes a blank face. "Nope, I'm from East Blue." Luffy deadpanned as the 2's jaw dropped. How is that possible for a kid to live when he traveled from East Blue to here? The 2 thought at the same time as they picked up their jaws. "You guys can come with me to East Blue since it's safer there. I plan to some islands," Luffy says as the 2 nodded. Luffy ended the conversation. "I still don't know Robin's exact location considering she travels everywhere while I can't possibly go to Florian Triangle considering I have to be invited." The 2 looked at him as if he was crazy but then stopped when they sighed. "How were you able to survive when you traveled here to East Blue?" Law asks as Luffy looks at Law with amused eyes. "Easy. I traveled, Calm Belt, till here," Luffy casually says as the 2 only shakes their heads as they already came over Luffy's habits. "O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O. You don't sleep, do you?" Corazon asks Luffy, who was looking at the sky. "If I do, I'll have nightmares," Luffy says with a monotone voice which made Corazon frown. What happened to him? Corazon thought as Luffy looked at the sky. Luffy sighed. You don't need to pretend, Toro. Luffy says while Law gets a tick mark and stands up. Don't call me that, and how did you know that I was awake? Law says angrily while Luffy shrugs. For a week we'll be able to dock in a good island since we're with my sea friends. Luffy says while the two sweat dropped as they just nodded. Sometimes Luffy's weirdness is too weird. Luffy picks a fishing rod with a worm as baits. Sometimes I just want to eat them but I don't eat my friends. Luffy says as he wipes his drool as the two sea kings shake in fear and turn to Luffy with scared eyes and then continues at full speed. O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O when they finally went to a good island, which they can buy a good ship, and successfully bought one, Luffy whistles in awe. That is some great temporary ship we have there, no kidding. Luffy says while Corazon nods in agreement as Law just looked at the ship in front of them. The ship was red colored and a big one too. It has 10 cannons, 2 at each side, and the helm was fairly strong. Let's go inside. Luffy grinned as he said it and the two nodded as Corazon took a lighter and tried to light the cigarette he had in his mouth but then he accidentally lit his feathery jacket on fire. The two sweat dropped. O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O Luffy might say it was cool having this kind of ship. It had 3 rooms and was very big. The living room was bigger. It might not be like the 1,000 Sunny Frankie made, but it was worth it. This is so big. Corazon says as he was fascinated by how the ship was so big. Law was searching for some place that would be quiet for once. I'll go and stock our foods. We'll go to Drum Island. It's all according to my plan so no need to worry. Luffy says as Law only nods as Corazon gaped of how sometimes Luffy can be so smart then back to being an idiot. Okay, the rest was a comfortable silence as they finally sailed towards Drum Island. We're going to pass Calm Belt. Corazon yells in shock while Luffy just nods with a grin on his face. Yeah. Luffy shouts gleefully with no worries while Corazon gaped at Luffy and looked at Law whose jaw dropped in shock. Calm Belt is a nest of sea kings. What if I'm not able to protect the Law? Corazon yells in frustration as Luffy facepalms. Oh oi, I don't need protect, Law gets cut off by Luffy. My friends, Luffy says blankly as pointed at the two insanely large sea kings, were also found at Calm Belt. Law looks at him as if he had 2 heads as Corazon's jaw dropped. How? The two shouts in disbelief while Luffy's eye twitched in annoyance. Then the boat was somehow only being dragged by the sea kings, which only Luffy felt. Oh look, we're here already. Luffy shouts in excitement as Corazon and Law paled. Then they heard a roar, which undoubtedly made Law and Corazon's skin paler. Luffy gave the two paddlers, which made the two confused. Paddle, it'll be faster, and I'll punch some sea kings who try to eat us. Luffy says as he grins as Law and Corazon remembers the day when Luffy knocked out Doflamingo in one punch so they nodded, but can't help but feel somehow scared. O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O, she, that was fun. Let's do it again. Luffy, being the only one energetic, shouts as the other two was pale and exhausted. No, I am not about to let Law get eaten again. Corazon says to Luffy for a seriously having trauma on Sea Kings, shaking in pale Law who was at the corner, shaking. TCH, fine. Luffy says as he later grins. Flashback after Corazon's clumsy scenes, which consists of accidentally being eaten by a Sea King, slipping at the boat then falling out of the water. Corazon and Law was paddling faster than lightning as Luffy was busy playing and somehow fighting with the Sea Kings. A Sea King suddenly ate Law who was at Corazon's side. Law WW. Corazon shouted as he was pale and caught Luffy's attention. Ah! Luffy shouts in shock yet goes after Law, present. At least I got him before he was at the belly. Luffy says while Law, who was at the corner sulking, gained a tick mark and attempted to punch Luffy, who unconsciously moved out of the way. Before I got to the stomach. Do you know how disgusting it was? Law yells in frustration as Luffy looked at Law, confused. But I got eaten by crocodiles a lot of times. It wasn't scary, only dark and slimy. Luffy says as he defends himself while the two gaped before shutting up. It would take months to end an argument with Luffy. O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O. Land ho. Luffy shouts as they landed at Drum Island. He inflates himself to look like of what he was at the after the time skip. Law and Corazon were about to ask but stopped. They had no problem with it anyways. For what exact goal do we have on coming here? Law asks on Luffy, who is ordering the Sea Kings to wait underwater. Ah, I heard there were some doctors who were geniuses so I decided to let them help you with your illness considering the devil fruit only slows down the sickness you have. Luffy says gleefully as Law nods as they walk at the land, which somehow felt good touching the land, which had piles of snow. Somehow it feels good to feel land. Corazon says to no one as Luffy laughed and Law nods in agreement. It's because people love the land, you're probably landsick, Luffy says while Law looks at him with his eyebrow raised. Is landsick even a word? Law asks Luffy, who thinks for a moment before shrugging. Don't know, let's go. Luffy responds while Law shakes his head as he followed Luffy. Corazon was behind Law. After a couple of minutes of walking and talking to each other, Luffy stopped walking. "What's wrong, Luffy?" Corazon asks Luffy, who completely have a bored expression. "Just a couple of people pointing guns and swords at us," Luffy says casually as Corazon's eye widened and protectively covered Law when the bushes rustled. "Who dares to infiltrate King Waipol's island?" An unknown person shouts while guns were shown in the bushes. Luffy facepalmed. He forgot about Wapol. "Shut up," Luffy says as he got pissed when he remembered eating a part of going merry and also made his soon-to-be Nakama cry and lose someone important from him. Corazon gaped at Luffy. "What are you saying? You're going to rebel against a king? We should just surrender quietly and tell them we're here for sightseeing," Corazon says as he was worried considering Law was still weak. "The best coward in the world, the Oso King Wapol." Luffy made sure the sarcasticness was obvious. Law and Corazon looked at him like he had two heads. The bush revealed Dalton, an imposing man Luffy may say, with slick black hair and a goatee. He wears a long, white fur-lined green tunic and has armor plates on his arms. Luffy unconsciously smiled at the soon-to-be king. "How dare you say that to King Wapol?" Luffy scowled at Dalton. Remembering what he was at the present, past, time, Dalton raised his arms, revealing many soldiers and Wapol who was sitting at an animal. Luffy grinned and took Law and Corazon's hands. "Let's go," Luffy shouts and laughs as Wapol was mad for being called a coward. That is honestly true if I may say. "Kill them," Wapol yells in anger while the soldiers run towards them. Luffy laughed and used his gear second, which confused the hell out of everyone looking and ran so fast that no one saw it. In the end, they were in the forest and Luffy was grinning like a madman while Law and Corazon were on the verge of puking. "What was that?" Law shouts in anger. "It made us dizzy. Tell us if you're gonna do it next time," Corazon shouts while his face turns blue. Luffy just laughed it off as the two kept shouting at him, which of course Luffy let go. Luffy saw a base at a tree. "Oh look, a base at a tree," Luffy shouts as the two stopped and looked. Luffy ran at the base while laughing, leaving Law and Corazon to follow him, which is way too far, and shouting at Luffy. Luffy knocks at the door. "Hello. Is anyone there?" Luffy slowly asks as the two who was following him was beside him with their guard up. The door opened and showed an old man wore mottled pink pants and a black coat over a green shirt. Over his bizarre white hair resembling a cross, he wore a black hat that matched his coat. He had long gray hair arranged in three standing outs, one to each side and one at the top, the latter of which is covered by his hat. He also had a black goatee and mustache. "What is it, kid? Do you have an illness?" the old man suddenly asks while Luffy grins when he saw Chopper behind the old man. "Nope, I'm not the one that has an illness." Luffy pauses while he pushes Law, who is glaring at the old man. "This guy is the one who has an illness, Amber Lead." The old man's eye widened. "A Amber Lead," the old man says slowly as Law thought the guy would get scared and won't help him. Keyword. Thought. "My name is Hilaluk. You can call me Dr. Hilaluk. Chopper. Can you lead him to the bed?" Law and Corazon were surprised by what he did. Law frowned. "Didn't you heard Amber Lead was infectious?" Hilaluk grins at Law, which made Law more surprised. "I'm a doctor. As a doctor, I have the responsibility to heal the sick people, either it's infectious or not," Hilaluk says proudly while Law was wide-eyed and Corazon grinned. "I trust you," Corazon says while Hilaluk grinned at him and led Law to the bed. Luffy looked at Chopper, who was visibly sweating at Luffy's look. Hilaluk looks at Luffy, thinking what Luffy might say next.
"You're a monster," Luffy said slowly as Chopper was teary-eyed. Law and Corazon didn't think Luffy could say something like that, while Hilaluk was frowning and was about to say something but Luffy cut him off. Quote. "Like me." All of them looked at Luffy as he was bending his arms into different places and stretching them. Hilaluk laughed, happy to see Chopper getting along well with a person.
I also have a devil fruit," Law says as Hilaluk el Corazon, Chopper, and Luffy. "I have the Op no Mi, Op devil fruit. I can help you to heal me," Law says while Hilaluk smiles at Law. "Good to know. Now we have to start or we're going to waste time," Hilaluk responds while he lays down Law. While Luffy and Corazon went out, excluding Chopper, who was helping in Kureha, who was called by Hilaluk for help, to go have fresh air. Corazon can't help but wonder. "Why didn't you went to the kingdom to ask for help?" Corazon asks as he lights his cigarettes and Luffy's eye darkened, which didn't go unnoticed by Corazon. "Haven't you figured out yet? Wapol doesn't care about the villagers, so he has the doctors with him. If the villagers need help, they have to pay a huge amount of money," Luffy says darkly as Corazon's eye widens before getting angry. "Rich people and their selfishness," Corazon says quietly. There was a comfortable silence before Luffy remembers something. His eye widened at the revelation. "I heard from Chopper that Asen had a fatal disease. which means that Law can't save him since it's fatal and Law is still learning with his powers. Luffy sits on the floor, which made Corazon's attention to him and can't help but worry. Is something wrong, Luffy? Corazon says worriedly while Luffy puts his arms on his knees and held it close to his chest. Then that means I can't save Asen, Chopper will still experience pain, Luffy says in his thoughts as Corazon was panicking through the whole thing. OPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPO. Thanks for helping Torao, Luffy says as he was grinning to Hilaluk, Chopper, and Doctorine. Don't worry about it, the only thing we were able to do was slow it down, Hilaluk says while rubbing his head sheepishly. It took us 3 days to almost heal him, we only slowed it down and helped him to completely heal. Don't praise me, you idiot, Chopper says while he does the weird dance. Hey. If Hilaluk asked me for help, I do it, but I like you kid, you paid me 70 million belly even when I asked for 50 million belly, Doctorine says while holding the money like it was some precious gem. Luffy laughed with them as the other sweat dropped at the scene. We'll have to go now, bye, Luffy says as they went back towards the village. When they were out of sight and saw the village, Luffy ran to it. Miat, Luffy yells as he ran, without using his devil fruit, it'd be dangerous, and bumped into someone familiar. Luffy looked up and saw Dalton. Luffy scowled fully knowing that he still wasn't a friend. Ah, kid. It's you, do you need a house? I can help you, Dalton says as Luffy stares blankly at Dalton while the two finally caught up with Luffy. Don't run anymore, Law and Corazon says between their pants, at the same time and bonked him in the head while Luffy grinned at Dalton. We need a room, she, Luffy says while Dalton smiled at the kid including the two. I can show you my house, it's only the place, are you okay? Dalton says as he panics because Luffy just collapsed in the middle of the road. F. Luffy managed to say while he looks like he was about to puke. Law sighs, he needs food. Law says as Dalton's sweat dropped and led them to a restaurant first. OPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPO. After eating, much to the horror of Dalton and pretty much because he was scarred for losing all the money he had, and showing Dalton's room for the meantime and the proclamation of Luffy for staying at the island in 2 weeks, everything was quite fine. Or so he thought. Luffy can't help but feel something wrong today, it's like something was bound to happen, and it's not a good thing. What's wrong, Luffy? You seem so disturbed, Law says to Luffy who was visibly sweating. I don't know, I feel like something's wrong, something bad is going to happen. Putting that aside, I'm hungry, Luffy shouts as Law sweat drops while Luffy ran to the restaurant. He was eating everything until he stopped. He felt Chopper getting injured while Hilaluk getting frustrated. Luffy knew Hilaluk was close to dying. Luffy abruptly stood up that made Law and Corazon to stop eating. What's wrong? Law slowly asks while Luffy shook his head, a frown on his face. I'm going for a walk for a minute, Luffy says as he finished his food and steps out at the door. From the second he stepped out the door and was out of sight from any villagers, he used Zoro and went quickly to Chopper and saw Chopper with wounds with a mushroom in his hands and gave it to Hilaluk. I must be overreacting, Luffy says in his thoughts and went away and used Zoro again to go in Dalton's room, which Law and Corazon were there too. When he went inside the room, Law and Corazon comically fell over and was scared shitless, screaming. Law and Corazon's view, the door suddenly opened and Luffy was at the front of them grinning like a madman. Back to the story, Luffy laughed at their faces and went rolling to the floor. After a few hours of laughing, with Corazon and Law's killing attempts, Law and Corazon finally went to sleep. OPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPOPO. The two was woken up by screamings and pleadings of people, of course. Luffy already went there. Law and Corazon looked at what was happening. Two emotions were described at the scene they saw. Shock, rage. Please, my child has a high fever. Mine fell off a cliff, he needs urgent treatment. The mid-20 were scheduled to come to my house today. I've waited for a week for a doctor. Give US medicine. With the pleadings of people, Law and Corazon could only think of nothing but rage. Unknown to them, Luffy was hidden somewhere in the forest, looking at the skies. He can't save Hilaluk, but Hilaluk was about to die honorably. The thing he could only do was look at a distance and do nothing. He can't kill Wobble right now or he would have no benefits, only disadvantages. Luffy can hear and see at the distance. With emotionless eyes he could see running through the people carrying bombs and some weapons. Then next he hears Chopper cry. He probably discovered Asen's sickness. Luffy says in his thoughts while he sees Hilaluk at the castle. With Waypal's laugh can be heard even at his distance. Luffy can only do nothing but watch. He can see Asen getting pointed by guns as he falls on his knees, crying. He can hear saying he was glad no one was sick. Waypal's orders can be heard. Stop. You people can't possibly kill me, Hilaluk says as he smiles. What? Wapol screams in disbelief, and maybe mixed with anger. When do you think a person dies? When they are shot through the heart by the bullet of a pistol. No, when they are ravaged by an incurable disease. No, when they drink a soup made from a poisonous mushroom. No, Hilaluk pauses. A man dies when he is forgotten. Hilaluk says as he sits and takes a sake. Even if I'm gone, my dream will come true. The sick hearts of this country's citizens too will be saved. Why the tears, Dalton? Hilaluk asks the silently crying Dalton. Can the same be said for the country as well? Dalton asks as Hilaluk looks at his sake. As long as there are those to inherit the will, Hilaluk says as Wapol laughs at them, looking down at everyone. Bahahahaha. The heck are you crying for, Dalton? Wapol yells to Dalton while Hilaluk smiles, ignoring Wapol's words. A monster shall come here soon. He is my son, so don't lay a hand upon him. Hilaluk says as he raises his sake. Truly, what a spectacular life it's been. Mutterings can be heard at the sidelines as drinks his sake. The moment he drank his sake, a bomb turned on. Luffy can't help but let a tear fall from all this. Wapol laughed at everything and Chopper came in at his human form and wanted to avenge, but Dalton stopped him. Luffy stood up. He had an honorable death. And he was an honorable person. Luffy said as he had a blank face and went towards Law and Corazon, who was wide-eyed about everything. Life is unfair, isn't? The world is beautiful, but at the same time go visit Chopper. Law and Corazon look at Luffy, surprised. But, Luffy, ISN. Corazon asks only to be cut off by Luffy. Luffy only shakes his head. Chopper needs someone at his side. Luffy says as the two stayed quiet as they nodded. Corazon and Law was silently praying their condolence. They too learned from the hard way. Se, there are no incurable diseases in this whole world. Chopper shouts as Doctrine looks at Chopper. Doctrine, that's what you're about to call me from now on, Doctrine says while Chopper nods while crying. Luffy placed his hand on Chopper's shoulder. He was an honorable person, Luffy said as Chopper nods again as the two comforted Chopper. We still have 2 days and we're going to leave. I'll stay with you for the rest of the days. Chopper cried and kept saying, thank you, to Luffy as he hugged Luffy, and Luffy returned the hug. It's been 2 days and Luffy and the two was ready to leave. You're leaving already? Chopper asks and Luffy can't help but smile. He remembered asking the same at Shanks. Yeah, Luffy responds as Chopper hides his tears with the rim of his hat. Then suddenly Luffy places his hands on Chopper's shoulders. Hey, if you want, I'll come back someday, and when I come back, do you want to be my doctor at my crew? Luffy asks while Chopper was shocked but then grinned. Chopper agreed and hugged Luffy, who was laughing and grinning in happiness to death. The three watched on the sidelines, can't help but feel the warmth. After the teary goodbyes, Luffy went to the ship, waving to Doctrine and Chopper, before looking at Law and Corazon, smiling. Off to Water 7 next, Luffy shouts as he grins at Corazon and Law. Luffy's eyebrows have been twitching a lot, and it sure didn't go unnoticed by the two who's been worried at Luffy for his eyebrows twitching a lot lately. You okay? Law asks Luffy, who's pissed for someone talking with him right now. No, can I have some time to myself? Luffy asks politely with a tired smile. Law left him but still worried. Luffy can't believe it, how could he forget about Mocktown? Mocktown is dangerous for the two, especially that they're devil fruit users. Wait. If I let them stay with Cricket Dawson and I'll be the only one to go to Mocktown to stock up. Yeah. That's better. Luffy suddenly collapsed, which made Law and Corazon panic and go to him. It's so hard to think. Food. Corazon sighed as Law took Luffy and placed him on the chair, sighing. After that the two slept while Luffy was guarding the place, sipping coffee. Much to the protests of Corazon and Law, every so often. Luffy was grinning. Land ho. Luffy yelled at the two who were still sleeping, which annoyed Law. Can't you wake us up normally? Law asks while Luffy laughs and was at the deck with Law often using his devil fruit to at least hit Luffy. Corazon went to the deck and looked at Luffy confused. Aren't we supposed to be at Mocktown? Corazon asks as Luffy only laughs while Law stopped, interested at the question. We're still part of Jaya. We're only at a place where there are rumors about a man who knows about Sky Island. Mont Blanc Cricket. We're not going to Sky Island, we're only going to dock here. It's dangerous for devil fruits users such as yourself to go to Mocktown. I'll go myself. Luffy says with a grin. Corazon wanted to protest but Luffy glared at him saying, just listen to me, I'm stronger, look. Luffy wouldn't want anyone to get in danger, especially if it's his friends. Oh look. There's a castle. Luffy points at the cardboard-made castle which made Corazon and Law facepalm. That's made of cardboard, Corazon says with a blank face. And it's only colored. Law says while making the same face Corazon was making right now. I know, Luffy says with a gleeful tone. The two comically fell while Law stopped getting angry, it's bad for their health. Before they docked. Luffy inflated his body to look like a man, after time skip, but he still is wearing the buttoned vest. Since Law and Corazon already knew this, they kept quiet. Once they docked, Luffy looked at the surroundings, Law and Corazon following him. Luffy felt a presence down at the water, so he looked at the water. Somehow this seems familiar, Luffy says in his thoughts while Law and Corazon were looking at Luffy strangely. Then Luffy let someone drag him to the water since Luffy remembered him. Cricket-asan. See? Can't breathe. Cricket somehow noticed it was a kid, so he went up and dragged the kid down. Sorry, I didn't know it was a kid, Cricket says while Luffy coughed out some water. Luffy. Law and Corazon said as Corazon attacked Cricket in rage as Cricket did the same. Opopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopopop Quick! Help him! He has a diver's disease. Luffy yelled as Law looked at him, frowning. Why should we help him? He almost killed. Luffy grew a throbbing vein which made Law and Corazon flinch. Please! Help him! Now! Luffy says as the two nods but Law sighed. Corazon took Cricket in the house, placing him firmly in the bed as Law checked up on him. Yeah, it's a diver's disease. How did you know? And why do you care about him? It's not like he's related to you, is he? Law asks as he takes care of Cricket. Luffy remembered the times where his nakama died one by one in front of him. He certainly wouldn't want seeing one right now. As much as rude I am, I still respect the old people. Luffy says honestly. He looks at Cricket with worry. The three was taking care of Cricket, who introduced himself to the others, when two look-alike monkeys came in shouting. Boos! Are you alright? The two monkey-like people yelled, then silence came to the room before the two shouted at the three, excluding Cricket, who was napping for a minute. Just what are you doing here? The monkey with green hair yells while the red-haired one shouted next. What did you do to our bow? The red-haired one was cut off because Cricket threw a towel at them, which successfully shut them off. Quiet, they're good people. Cricket says as the two looked at Cricket, obviously happy. BOSSS. The three yelled again, as they were ready to leap and hug Cricket to death, which Law obviously disagreed and kicked the two in their stomach. He's sick, don't make him move too much. Law says as he was glaring at the two who were doing doggies and saying, sorry, the Law, which made Corazon and Cricket to sweat drop while Luffy to laugh. Very similar when I first met the three, Luffy says in his thought. When the others were getting along quite well, Shoju, the green-haired one, brought out a book. Do you know what this is? This the story of King of Liars, Noland, Shoju says as Masira, the red-haired one, grins and nods in agreement. It's our favorite book, Masira says while Cricket was quiet through the story which was explained by Shoju and Masira as Luffy grinned at the end. I think it's real, Luffy says while Corazon and Law look at Luffy as if he grew two heads. Shoju and Masira were grinning along with Luffy while Cricket was interested. Why would you think it's real? Cricket asks while Luffy looks up to the ceiling. What if the land went to the sky? Using Knockup Stream which comes out here, why don't they discover if it's on the Sky Island or Skypia? Luffy explains while all of them was confused, except Cricket. Skypia? They chorused while Luffy just laughed. It's a Sky Island, anyways. I have a request to make, Cricket-osan, Luffy says while he turns to Cricket, who was quite amused when he put aside an important information but decided to ignore it. What is it? Cricket asks while Luffy grins and leans on the side. I want you to take care of Corazon and Torao. I've heard it take 4 days to set up the log post. Luffy was cut off by Corazon slamming his hands on the table. You have a log post? Corazon interrupted while he had a funny angry face. Yeah, it's in my room. That's why we were able to go to the island safely. Luffy says while Corazon just gaped. Why didn't you told us sooner? Corazon yells while Law just sighed and ate food, leaving all the bread for some reason. So I want you to take care of them while I stock up items in Mocktown and gain pieces of information. Luffy explains like no one interrupted him as Cricket, Masira and Shoju's eyebrow raised up. You're a little kid, and you also have a devil fruit which makes it dangerous. Why would you go on your own? Being a kid is enough proof that you can't fight. Cricket says while Corazon, who is now calm, looks at him as if he was stupid. Law does the same. Law and Corazon raise their arms with their hands flat, swishing them with a blank face. No, not at all. They chorused while Masira was becoming to be more interested. What do you mean? Masira asks while Corazon and Law looked at them as if they were crazy. He's strong, stronger than any average strong fighter. Corazon says as he takes out a lighter and lights his cigarette. He was able to beat up Doflamingo, who was very strong in our place in one punch, and helped us escape in his reigning. Law says while he kept his blank face. He had 2 sea kings which he tamed in Calm Belt, and I think yesterday he said he released them after having the ship. Corazon says another one and glances at Luffy. He also said that he came from East Blue, traveled from North Blue then back here to Grand Line, saying it's his vacation. Law drops the bomb. As Corazon and Law said this, each of it shocked Cricket and the two brothers, which untie it and make their jaws drop. You're kidding, right? Masira asks, hoping he was dreaming. which Law destroyed the hope. No, it's real. He saved us. Law says with a blank face. Nasira and Shoju fainted as Cricket fell and muttering about, strong kids these days are, I'm going to have a headache. Luffy laughs and turns to Cricket. So, Luffy says, waiting for the answer. Cricket sighed and nodded. After the night where Cricket and the two brothers discovered he can't sleep, they gave him coffee instead. After that, Luffy went off to Mocktown. When Luffy came in Mocktown, it's been nothing but troubles. Luffy was pissed off of how the people act and treated him like a kid. There was this one who went too far and Luffy gave him a peace of mind by punching him directly in the face, and it was in the middle of the road which proved he was strong. He came in the bar and the room went silent before everyone was laughing. Luffy does have a lot of endurance but he can't have that many. If they say something bad about something, I'll act. Luffy thought and stomped off to the counter, sitting on the stool. This isn't a kid's place, brat. The bar owner says while Luffy was sure he had a throbbing vein on his head. He took out few amounts of money which the owner quickly took and asks for what he wanted. Coffee. Luffy casually says and the bar owner quickly gave the coffee to him. While he was silently sipping his coffee, Luffy took out a sack of money in front of the bar owner, who was gaping. Give me a big sake which is tall like this. Luffy jumped, which made the pirates laugh, and make Luffy irritated. And make the sake the greatest kind of sake you can make. All of it for this sack of money, just one. The bar owner sweat dropped. It'll take 2 days to complete that. The bar owner says while Luffy nods and takes out another sack of money. And this is for lots of meat, and the foods you have. The owner just nods and takes them. A pirate group stood up and banged their hands on the counter, which made Luffy more irritated, plus his coffee spilled. You look like you've got a lot of money there, kid. The pirate captain took out a gun and pointed it on Luffy's head, whose eyes were covered by his hat. He was sure no one would want to see his face, right now. Mind giving it to me? The pirate threatened while he touched Luffy's straw hat. His freaking straw hat. That was the last straw. Luffy gripped the pirate's hand and broke it, punching the man's nose. All hell breaks loose. At the end Luffy won in a second and had no injuries. One was able to ask what his name was. Who? Aryyou. He asks weakly at Luffy, who was incredibly pissed with his eyes glowing at the darkness of the room. Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy says before kicking the guy's face. Luffy turned to the bar owner, who was scared of the now demon kid in front of him. Shorten it to a day. All of it. Got it? Luffy ordered. It wasn't one of his good days, after all. After that day rumors spread about him being the straw-hatted demon, Luffy, and some who didn't believe it and tried angering Luffy when he was at Mocktown. Let's say, it didn't go well for them. After that Luffy was able to get the sake, which was enormously huge if Luffy may say so himself, but had no trouble bringing it. For 4 days the log post has been set while Luffy said goodbye to the three and said that they'd meet again, which confused the three. Off to Water 7. Luffy yells as the two grinned and set their course. Luffy, can I ask you something? Corazon asks as they were eating at the dining room. Yee, gulp, yeah? Luffy says between his eating everything mode. What's the use for buying a large sake bottle? Law asks instead Corazon. Luffy stopped for a second before grinning. It's a secret, shi, Luffy says before eating again, which made the two sweat drop. Oh, now that I remember Luffy, yeah, we'll be reaching Water 7 in a day. Law informs while Luffy gulps his food before cheering, which angered Law and threw his spoon to Luffy, who dodged and threw something back. In the end, it turned into a food fight which was stopped by Corazon's punch. Opo. We're here. Corazon shouts while Luffy was the first to come out and run towards the island. Food. Luffy slingshots himself to the island, of course while in his 19-year-old form, followed by the shouting of his name. Little did they know, Luffy used Geppo and went towards Frankie's place. He used Kenbunshoku Haki to know where he was, and saw that they were making some kind of train. Oh. It's pulling Tom, Luffy says in his thoughts as he goes to the alley and carefully went somewhere they won't see them. Yosh. Am I ready? Yeah? Luffy sarcastically thought as he turned around to see a fishman, with short horns and a yellow body. He had markings under his eyes, black spots on his neck near his gills, sharp teeth from his lower lip pointing upward, and a white beard. White, curly hair also sprouted behind his neck from under his brown bandana, and his large chest was covered by an unbuttoned light blue shirt with a blue pattern on it. He had a relatively small lower body in comparison to his large upper body, and he wore brown pants and simple boots. He also had a tattoo of a flowery design on both of his shoulders. Luffy wasn't surprised, considering he sensed him long ago. What are you doing in this alley, kid? The fishman asks while Luffy just grins at him happily. Nothing. Who are you, Asen? Luffy asks while the Asen laughs back. My name is Tom. What's your name, kid? Tom says while Luffy blinks and has a blank face before grinning at him. She, I'm Monkey D. Luffy. Nice to meet you, Tom Asen. Luffy says gleefully. This must be the Tom Frankie was talking about. It's cramped in here. Would you like to go out and see our work? Tom asks while Luffy nods and lets Tom lead the way. Where Luffy remembered the most. It was the place where they got Thousand Sunny and have Usopp back. Luffy giggled while Tom looked at him questionably, but shrugged it off. This is my students. Luffy looked and saw a mini Frankie and a mini iceberg Asen. Hello. My name's Luffy. Luffy says while the two looks at him. I'm Frankie. Frankie says as Luffy laughs while he typically strikes his signature pose. He leans to one side and bends the knee on the same side. The other leg is straight and going the opposite direction. He throws his head back. His arms go over his head at locked together wrist to wrist, and also shouting, ow. I'm Iceberg. Iceberg says with a blank face. Luffy can't help but notice the battleships behind them. Of course, Frankie noticed this. You're looking at my battleships, aren't they a beauty? Frankie asks while Luffy beams and nods. It's been a long time since he saw Frankie and his weird antics. Of course, Frankie had an ego boost. So he told many things about the ships which made Luffy more happier than ever since there's nothing more better than knowing your nakama. Flashback. Luffy was walking at the broken Thousand Sunny and saw Frankie, who was broken, and the only thing which made Luffy know him was the straw hat skull on the chest and his blue hair. Luffy remembered the last thing Frankie said to him. Live and become the super RR Pirate King. We'll fend them off. Luffy falls on his knees and cried his hearts out. Present, then Luffy's name was heard throughout the island. Luffy looks on his side to see Law and Corazon running towards him with incredible speed. Oops, that's them. Luffy says he sweat drops. Don't you ever leave like that? Corazon yells as he bonks Luffy in the head while the two had tick marks on their forehead. What if you earned an injury for going away or you tripped you idiot? Law says with a hint of worry in his tone. He checks Luffy everywhere checking for some injuries, scratches, etc. etc. Luffy has a feeling that Law's becoming like Ace and Sabo day by day. It looks like your friends came to get you. I was hoping to know you better. Tom says while Corazon and Law bowed at them. Thank you for taking care and putting up with Luffy. They chorused, which made Luffy say, oi, in the background and made them laugh. Luffy didn't want to go yet. He wanted to know more about Frankie. It'd be his last travel in Grand Line after all. Cora-san. Can we dock our ship here so I can see them again? Nay, please. Luffy whined and used his puppy eyes, which he didn't use for the rest of his trip and was very effective. You can. Corazon says, grinning while Law facepalmed despite being caught up with the puppy eyes too. Law and Corazon have nosebleeds while they were blushing like Ace, of course. Luffy ignored this and cheered, then ran like a madman to the ship. After 20 minutes the boat was shipped near the scrap island while Tom's family, his students, ate with Corazon, Luffy, and Law. After 2 days of getting to know Frankie and the others better, Luffy decided to send the sake to Whitebeard, which he kept it as a secret, and it was a miracle that no one asked yet. Luffy packed, which made Luffy's friends and Nakama wonder. Where are you going, Luffy? Tom and Corazon ask while Luffy grins at them. I'm going to take a quick vacation somewhere. The log post will set up in 3 more days. By the time it sets up I'll be here. Luffy says as he adjusts his handle at the sake. Frankie was visibly sad, of course, the others were too. Isn't it dangerous for a little guy to go and travel somewhere far? Frankie says as he had a hint of pleading to not let Luffy go. And Luffy looked like a 19-year-old, so it's weird considering Luffy was much more taller and older in either form or not. But sadly Luffy needed to do this. Luffy shook his head. I might go back earlier than I might expect, so it's okay. Luffy says as he tries to cheer Frankie up, which worked. Bye guys. Luffy says as he waves to the others. So now that they were out of sight, Luffy used his gear second and used Geppo the hardest he can. He needs it to go past New World after all. 1, 2, 3, go. Luffy uses Geppo and went past Grand Line. He tried searching Whitebeard's ship, which was found by 30 minutes later, which includes that Luffy went to an island and bought another sake, which was bigger. Unfortunately he can't do a good landing, so he tried his best to stop himself to prevent more damage to Moby. Of course Luffy shrank, cause he liked seeing people's reactions. Marco was reading the newspaper casually next to Whitebeard. Then he thought that it must have been a miracle Thatch was prevented in doing any pranks. He looked at his newspaper back, then something crashed in the Moby, which made Marco have a tick mark. So much for a good day, yoi. Marco says as all of them had their guards and weapons up. Then they saw 2 large sake bottles. Who would go far in crashing himself just to deliver 2 sake bottles? Thatch shouts in disbelief while the others agreed in silently. Ah. It didn't hurt that much. They heard a high-pitched voice. A small figure went out of the dust and revealed a kid with a straw hat. Everyone's jaw drops while Marco and Whitebeard weren't surprised in the slightest. This was New World. Who sent you, kid yoi? Marco asks while Luffy laughs at the people's reaction. I'm not sent by anyone. I came by myself. She. Luffy says as he grins while the others digested the information they had with utter disbelief. Whitebeard decided to step up. "Are you Monkey D?" Luffy Beard asks while everyone looks at him while Luffy nods gleefully. "Shanks gave you the letter?" Surprised he didn't forget about it, Luffy jokes while Whitebeard laughs and all crew members looked at Marco who gave them an "I didn't know" look. "Oyaji, who is he Yoi?" Marco asks the question everyone's been asking in their mind. Whitebeard looks at Marco with a grin. "Remember when that red-haired brat came here personally? He gave me a letter which belonged to that brat, and I was told to read it myself." Whitebeard explains while all of them now looked at Luffy who was walking towards Whitebeard. All of them raised their weapons and guarded Whitebeard, which was denied by Whitebeard himself. "You got to explain what this letter is all about, brat." Luffy nods as Whitebeard and Luffy went towards their room. Luffy stopped for a second which made Whitebeard look at him. Luffy looked sideways to the commanders, smiling. "Any commanders who wants to listen to our conversation?" Luffy asks as all the commanders instantly came to Whitebeard's side as Luffy and Whitebeard laughs then walked towards Whitebeard's room. "O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O. So, what's all this letter about?" Thatch asks while Whitebeard was happily drinking the sakes Luffy gave him. Whitebeard stopped drinking and took out the letter and read it aloud. "Dear Giant Asen." Thatch and Haruta snickers silently as Marco gave them a bonk in the head. "If you're reading then Shanks believed what I said at the top, which you shouldn't read Giant Asen. Anyways, if you're reading this I'm going to tell you that I'm from the future. You'll see me later on when I go to Water 7 to see my Nakama. If you're gonna ask the reason I came back in time, it's because something bad will happen in the future. I came here to prevent it. And if you're wondering why I told you about this is because your crew and you yourself are involved in this, badly. I'll tell you the rest when I come Giant Asen." From Monkey D. Luffy, the future Pirate King, all the commander's jaw was on the ground while Marco sighed and he knew a headache was coming. "How are we gonna believe that kind of thing?" Izo shouts in disbelief while Luffy wasn't surprised in the slightest, he sighs. "I really have to show it, don't I?" Luffy asks while he starts to take off his straw hat first, then next his shirt. Everyone's eye widened. Luffy rubbed his old scar. "I thought it wouldn't come with me. But it came with me. Life is unfair, isn't?" Luffy says grimly as he chuckled darkly, which gave the shivers to each and every person inside. Izo kneels down and touches the scar as his eyes widened. "It's real, how did you get the scar?" Izo asks quietly while Luffy smiles sadly. It made them quite guilty, it feels like they were asking something too personal. "Portgas D. Ace, the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, my brother, and your brother, died from a war. A war which was his execution. I've heard from Ace before that Thatch the 4th Division commander, died by a traitor in this ship. The traitor was from the 2nd Division, which made Ace go and chase him. Which ended with a war. This is where I got the scar. And where we failed to protect not only Ace but Whitebeard too." Luffy explains as Thatch was horrified by the revelation. "I knew it would come someday Yoi." Marco says as the commanders had to agree, things don't stay the same. "Who was the traitor?" Whitebeard finally asks while Luffy put his clothes back with a blank face. "Marshal D. Teach." Luffy says like it was a curse as he curls his hands in fury. Thatch, who was surprisingly quiet from all this, decided to talk. "What would he gain from killing me?" Thatch asks with his hands curled also, but not in fury, but fear of deciding to fight one of his brothers. He'd never want to imagine what it would be if he had to fight one of his brothers. "For a devil fruit, the yummy no mi, dark fruit." Luffy says as the others digested the information once again. Luffy looks at Whitebeard who was calm at everything and points his finger at Whitebeard, letting him know that he was about to tell something. "Listen, you might be one of the old generations, but don't die in a battlefield with your family crying. When you die, at least do it with your family and they'll have their times with you. Seriously, you're like my brother, he doesn't go away and tell us, if I fight a guy, I won't run away, thing. If I have to open your head and drill it in you, I do it." Luffy shouts while he has a tick mark on his forehead for some reason. "Oh, Giant Asen, don't tell Ace I came here and I came from the future. I'd like to see his shocked face when I have to punch his face." "Gurararara. Fine brat," Whitebeard says while Luffy earns a tick mark again, which really confused everyone. "And also, I'm not a brat. I'm 62 right now," Luffy says while everyone laughs before pregnant silence came. "What?" All of them yelled in shock and their jaws were on the ground. Except for Whitebeard and Marco who only widened their eyes. 62? When's your birthday?" Whitebeard asks while he stops drinking sake. "May 5th, why?" Luffy says while he raises while Whitebeard laughs. "Gurararara. I'm 62 and you're older than me," Whitebeard says as he drinks his sake while everyone is ready to dig the holes deeper under their jaws. Too much information. "And you said you were younger than everyone," Marco slyly says while Whitebeard almost spat his sake. "O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O." The others went out as all the members were outside, visibly sweating. Marco sighed at the crowdedness. "It's all okay," Marco informs as the others cheered. But then, the shipwrights came. Why is there holes in the ground? Oh oi, the water's leaking. Get the planks, quick, what the hell happened? O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O. Ah. The others were scared shitless from Luffy's yell, he was sweating so much. What's wrong? Whitebeard asks as he stops drinking sake and looks at Luffy. You, Luffy gulps and his color was drained right on the spot. Did you invited Garp the Fist here for drinking? Whitebeard nods as he was white as a sheet and didn't move until he took his backpack. I got a goi's G channel you and he sees me here and I can't keep a secret till his life so he'll probably tell Seagull Asan so keep this a secret from him. I gotta go it's G-chan. I'll die when he sees me and he can't keep a secret all his life so he'll probably tell Seagull Asan, so keep this a secret from him. Luffy says quickly as he uses Gear second and Geppo in a second. Whitebeard and the others were deadly quiet as they slowly repeated what Luffy said in their minds. And then all of them shouts in surprised. Excluding Marco and Whitebeard who knew. O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O. I'm BAACCKK. Luffy shouts as he went straight on in the middle of Scrap Island, which was at the center of Law and Corazon, who shouted in surprise including Tom and the three who was at the back. Phew, it was a quick vacation. She. Luffy says as he patted himself. Luffy was suddenly shot by a scalpel. Watch where you're landing. Law yells as he shouted death threats at Luffy who was laughing through everything. Corazon only sighed before bonking the two in the head. Luffy looked at Tom and the three. Hey, I'm back. No hugs or even a hi to me. Luffy says as he jokes only to find himself at a pile of people and was hugged to death. After that Frankie wiped his tears and grinned. Welcome back, Luffy bro. Luffy laughed and hugged Frankie, who secretly wiped a tear. He didn't have the chance to hug Frankie for a long time. We'll leave tomorrow, that's why I'll say it today. Luffy says as he let go of Frankie who was confused along with the others. Will you be my nakama when I'll sail someday? Luffy says, grinning as he waited for Frankie to nod. Frankie looked surprised. He wanted to be one of Luffy's nakama, despite not knowing him for a long time. He looks at Tom for permission, only to find Tom laughing. Frankie quickly nodded and hugged. Elsberg was quite touched at the scene, especially at the straw-hatted who was laughing and somehow he was also crying in happiness. O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O-P-O. Bye. Bye Tom-san. Bye Iceberg Asen. Bye Frankie. Bye Kokura Bakken. Luffy shouts as they sailed. The others left things like, I'm not that old, and stuff like that. Luffy was going to miss them, off to East Blue. Luffy shouts as he grinned.